Hi there, I'm David, and welcome to my video looking at, once again, the Sontronics STC-1. Now, I have looked at this microphone before in my good microphones for bad recording environments videos, but in that case, I looked at it with the Cardioid capsule, and I have not yet looked at it with just the default Cardioid capsule. So that's what I'm going to be looking at in today's video. As always, I've set things up the same way. I have set the microphone up to have peaks of between -12 and -20 so that it would achieve a noise floor of -60 or below. My tests involve running through 20 sentences between 1 and 9 words, testing character voices, sibilants, plosives, proximity, etc. The only thing I've done to the audio is normalize each sentence somewhere between Luft's I and -20 and Luft's I and -24 so that the videos are comparable between different microphones and, of course, also between my different videos. Beyond that, there is no editing, no second takes, just the adjustments to balance the noise. So I'm featuring two microphones in this video. Obviously, the Sontronics STC-1 is one of them as the microphone I'm reviewing, but in comparison to that, and honestly a bit of an unfair comparison, I have got my daily workhorse, the Neumann TLM-102. It would have been nice to have a similarly cheap microphone to the Sontronics STC-1, but I do not have any cardioid microphones other than the Neumann. So, if we take a look at the Neumann's frequency response curve, I'm very familiar with this microphone, but even if I wasn't, you could tell that there would be a well-controlled bass, but with a roll-off that starts quite low, so could potentially need some extra EQing when able to do that. There's this lovely boost to clarity up at the top end, and a slightly odd dip in the curve, which for raw audio can impact how clear the voice is for certain voices, and it certainly does impact mine a little. Self-noise is low at 12 dBA, and the noise floor I got for these tests was -66 before normalizing. As I said, this is my day-to-day workhorse. I think it's particularly good for my voice. I actually prefer it to the more expensive, but otherwise fairly equivalent TLM-103. It's quite affordable. It is £554 from Gear for Music. If I find an alternative deal, I will link to that instead. But if Gear for Music is linked in the description, that means that is still the best deal I can find. And $750 from Amazon US. Worth noting, of course, that the Gear for Music price, the £554, is the Neumann studio set, while the latter is just the microphone, so not entirely comparable. Looking at the Sontronics STC-1, let's pull up the frequency response. I think this is very interesting because of the very wide range, wider than a lot of the comparatives that I've looked at. There is a boost around the area where a lot of the energy in my voice sits, which should be a good thing. However, there is also a lot of energy, a lot of noise being recorded below the useful range, which is going to contribute to a higher noise floor, despite the fact that our ears aren't really going to hear the lower tones. It has a similar boost at the top end to the famous and, in my case, absolutely adored Sennheiser MKH416. And unfortunately does have higher self-noise than the Neumann TLM-102. It's got a 16 dBA self-noise, and that is where we hit the first problem with this microphone. Without the high-pass filter switch enabled, I couldn't actually get an acceptable peak level and a noise floor below -60. However, with the high-pass filter enabled, I managed to get a noise floor of between -60 to -66, which is good, but not amazing. Not when the Neumann is getting me a noise floor of -66 at the most, and doesn't require an added high-pass filter to do that. My experiences with this microphone have been mixed, to say the least. It was a dreadful failure, frankly, when looking at the Cardioid capsule. It thoroughly underperformed my expectations, which weren't amazingly high in the first place, given the price. But I am hopeful that that was a case of the usual problems of hypercardioid capsule, sounding more distant, not picking up tone quite in the same way. So I'm hopeful that these tests with the cardioid will be better. Price-wise, Sontronics is a UK company, so it is a damn sight easier to get hold of in the UK. It is £151 from Amazon UK and $250 from Amazon US. In the case of the hypercardioid capsule, you can get them for a fairly astounding £25 from Pink Noise Systems in the UK, and I have absolutely no idea where you get them in the US. I have not been able to find a suitable link. Good luck if you try and get one. In my case, as always, I try and get microphones secondhand when I can, so I got this for £66 plus £25 for the hypercardioid capsule, which was a fantastic deal. So, as always, running through the 20 tests, I'm running these in a trio, going to run the example with the Neumann TLM102 and 2 examples with the Sontronics, one with the high-pass filter on, one with the high-pass filter off. Let's have a listen to those.
Cue dramatic music. Cue dramatic music. Cue dramatic music.
Or don't, we're not your mom. Or don't, we're not your mom. Or don't, we're not your mom.
Crunchazoids. Crunchazoids. Crunchazoids.
Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Now, imagine the perfect espresso. Precision is not an option. Precision is not an option. Precision is not an option. Talk to someone who gets it. Talk to someone who gets it. Talk to someone who gets it.
I don't think we should go in there. I don't think we should go in there. I don't think we should go in there.
I brought you a spoon. I brought you a spoon. I brought you a spoon. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. Oh, it's a lovely day to be a me. I'm the best magical dog. I'm the best magical dog. I'm the best magical dog. All are safe under my protection. All are safe under my protection. All are safe under my protection.
Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up. Roll up.
You just got mud on my shoes. You just got mud on my shoes. You just got mud on my shoes. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy.
I'm going to count down from 3 and then. I'm going to count down from 3 and then. I'm going to count down from 3 and then.
Kill them all. Kill them all. Kill them all. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. She sells seashells by the seashore. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. They're right behind you. They're right behind you. They're right behind you.
Okay. And then the second set of tests I like to run is seeing how microphones work on edited long-form audio. So for this, as always, I have used the first paragraph of Winnie the Pooh, which was the first audiobook I ever did. I have fully processed and EQ'd these, and the EQ is largely the difference between these two, other than the microphone itself. Let's have a listen. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, bump, bump on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you. Winnie the Pooh. Here is Edward Bear, coming downstairs now, bump, bump, bump on the back of his head, behind Christopher Robin. It is, as far as he knows, the only way of coming downstairs, but sometimes he feels that there really is another way if only he could stop bumping for a moment and think of it. And then he feels that perhaps there isn't. Anyhow, here he is at the bottom and ready to be introduced to you. Winnie the Pooh. So, conclusions. Well, let's try and start with the positive. What did I like? I thought it was surprisingly rich on the I was never in the shadows line. Actually, let's have a listen to that. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. I was never in the shadows. And I also think it did well with the client said it was easy.
Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy. Client said it'd be easy.
I also think it's significantly stronger after EQing than without an EQ. In some ways, it actually sounds slightly crisper and clearer than the TLM 102. That said, I still don't like the sound as much, but I did think that it was slightly crisper and clearer at times. However, my longer list of what I didn't like. Without the high-pass filter, far too much energy is wasted at the lower end, leading us to have a higher noise floor that really isn't acceptable for use. As a whole, I think this microphone sounds quite harsh. It sounds slightly metallic, and the self-noise, which is meant to only be 4 decibels louder than the Neumann TLM 102, sounds significantly higher than that to me. I'm not a fan of the self-noise. There is a lack of richness. Now, that's kind of inherent. It's to be expected. This is, a multifunctional mic. It's designed to be used with interchangeable capsules. It's not first and foremost a spoken word mic like the TLM 102 can be used for. And probably one of the biggest problems with this microphone is the thing I love about small dynamic condensers. The thing I love about a lot of microphones really is their size. One of my favorite shotgun microphones is the Deity 3S, which is small. I mean, it is tiny. It's ridiculous. This is a small dynamic condenser that weighs something like 3 times the amount of a short shotgun. Is about the same length and is about twice as thick. It's heavy. It's bulky, and this is a problem, I think, for small dynamic condensers. I would prefer if it was a standard width of 19 millimeters or similar. So that's kind of a bit of a nail in the coffin for the microphone. On top of that, it sometimes sounds like there's a low-pass filter, making it sound a bit more distant, even though there's not. And it does add a colour to the sound that, frankly, I dislike. So that's that for that microphone. I suspect I will be sticking this back on eBay quite soon. But coming up in the next video, and one I am far more excited about, I will be looking at the Octava Mark 12 with the Hypercardioid capsule, comparing it indeed against my favourite small microphone, the Deity 3S. So hopefully I will see you back next time for that review. Goodbye!